Son whose mom was adopted finds shocking truth years later. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to m&rtv and hit the bell so you never miss any upload from us. Also, leave a like right now. Can a movie really change your life? One 2018 documentary impacted a New Jersey woman more than she thought possible. Once she sensed a personal attachment to the story. Unable to shake the film's message from her head, she and her son Andrew pursued a mystery about her own life. A shocking revelation about her past soon emerged, and they both had to wonder if they were doing the right thing. Michelle Mordkoff had always known that she was adopted. Her parents had told her in detail about how they went to pick her up from the agency and how happy they were to finally bring her home. However, on a summer's morning in July of 2018, Michelle was browsing on her phone on her way to work when she scrolled past an article describing a new movie that had just come out. The story made her wonder about her past. The docudrama Three Identical Strangers told the story of three young men who, during their time in college, discovered that they were all brothers, separated by their adoption agency. They'd been raised without any knowledge of each other. These triplets' adoptive parents hadn't even known about the other brothers' existences. Apparently, the adoption agency, Louise Wise Services, had secretly kept them apart for all of their lives. But why? The triplets, the movie revealed, were unknowingly part of an experiment by the late psychologist Dr. Peter Neubauer, who wanted to study the effects that different economic status, locations, and other major life factors would have on the same DNA. When Michelle read all about the movie, the triplets, the agency, and the experiment, her heart began to race. She had been adopted from that agency, and her year of birth in the early 60s was close to that of the triplets. Wondering if she had any siblings whose existence had been hidden from her, Michelle contacted journalist Lisa Belkin, who had previously investigated the obscure agency. With Belkin's help, Michelle took a DNA test to find any possible mystery relatives out there in the world. She anxiously waited a few weeks before the ancestry test results were finished. The genetics company had connected her to someone with a full DNA match, meaning they were an immediate family member. That was sibling territory, but there was no picture or full name to be found, only some initials, AK. Driven by an overpowering sense of curiosity, Michelle jumped on Facebook and searched for Kyle Cantor, a name that had come up in her family tree. She searched through his friends for hours and then hit the jackpot. There, on her computer screen, was a name written in bold letters, Allison Rodnon Cantor, from Calabasas, California, all the way on the other side of the country. Her initials matched the DNA profile, but her profile picture below struck Michelle the most. "I saw myself in her face," said Michelle in the interview. "I then checked her birthday, and it was May 12, 1964. It was the same date as her own. I just lost my footing and dropped to the floor." "It's crazy," said Michelle's son Andrew about his mother's discovery. "I knew she was adopted, but hearing the word twin is just a whole other thing. It makes her a different person with a different background and a whole other family out there." Of course, just knowing she had a twin wasn't enough, so on August 10th, Michelle and Allison were finally going to meet face-to-face. Lisa Belkin documented the unbelievable event. "I feel like it's my birthday," Michelle said of the day. At a hotel in New York City, Michelle and Andrew waited anxiously for her twin sister to walk into the door, not knowing what to expect or how they would feel about each other. Finally, Allison walked through the door. Despite having never met, sharing stories, or seeing each other before, the women clicked with each other instantly. From their physical features to their hair and clothes, nobody would doubt for a second that they were twins. They were sisters. After comparing their appearances, Michelle and Allison fell quiet for a moment, overwhelmed by each other's presence. We don't even know what to say to each other, Allison laughed. But it's a good thing, Michelle added. Though at first they kept the conversation light, they soon posed the question on everyone's mind. What about their birth parents? Michelle was adopted at 5 months old on October 14th, and Allison just 2 days later. That's so messed up, Michelle said. I keep thinking, how could the adoption agency do this to people? Allison said. They were playing with fate. I don't understand it, Michelle agreed. I know they completely screwed us over. We could have been the twins. Still, the women planned to make up for lost time. I can't wait to get to know her, Michelle said. Other than the birth of my children, this is the best day of my life, Allison echoed the sentiment. It still feels almost unreal, but after today, I know it's true. Word of the twins' reunion made it back to Tim Wardle, the filmmaker behind 3 Identical Strangers. I've been struck by how instinctive, magical, and moving genetic reunions can be, he said. He continued, this isn't to denigrate non-genetic relationships, which can also be powerful, but there's something extraordinary and almost transcendent about observing the interaction between 2 people who have never met before but share the same DNA. So far, Michelle and Allison are the only twins who have found each other due to 3 Identical Strangers. But the investigations into Louise Wise's history aren't over yet. In fact, authorities are still questioning how the 3 long-lost brothers from the film managed to reconnect, and how they dealt with the consequences. In 1980, 19-year-old Bobby Shafran was taking his first steps onto his college campus. He hoped to make friends at SUNY Sullivan, but not as quickly as he was that day. Everyone smiled and waved at him like they had known him for some time. It was also strange that they kept calling him Eddie. Bobby soon learned that he was being mistaken for someone by the name of Eddie Gallant, but not just because he looked similar. Supposedly, each was a dead ringer for the other, and so Bobby had to see this for himself. One day, Bobby and Eddie decided to meet. To make the reveal more dramatic, they decided to wear identical clothing, and, without others fully knowing who was who, one stood outside the other's dorm waiting for the door to open. A door separated Bobby and Eddie. The 2 had never seen each other before, but they were told by their campus friends, you have a twin. Whether their friends were being literal or not, the 2 19-year-olds would find out with a swing of a door. It came as a shock for both of them. Rather than there being another person, it was like a mirror was standing in front of them. This would be the start of Bobby and Eddie's time in the spotlight, but they didn't see all the twists and turns that lay ahead. The rumors were true. Bobby and Eddie were identical. Since each knew he was adopted, they drew the conclusion that they were long-lost brothers. Their picture was shared in newspapers, and the story reached far enough to reach another 19-year-old, thanks to his adoptive mother. Miss Kelman saw her adoptive son David's likeness in the boys. She shared the astounding photograph of Bobby and Eddie with him. After making contact with them, David reunited with his brothers. The news of the triplets spread like wildfire, and Bobby, Eddie, and David found fame they never could have imagined. Bobby, Eddie, and David took the world of pop culture by storm, appearing as guests on talk shows like The Phil Donahue Show, and even making a cameo appearance alongside Madonna in the film Desperately Seeking Susan. The world was shocked with how similar they were, and not just in looks. The triplets grew up in drastically different environments, each living with a family from a different economic class, blue-collar, middle-class, and wealthy. Even so, there was so much the 3 of them had in common. Their mannerisms, personalities, even down to what they liked, including their tastes in women. Still, something wasn't right. The trio enjoyed a great relationship as siblings. They even moved into an apartment together and opened the now famous Soho steakhouse Triplets. That success came with a price, however. As their fame grew, trusting each other became more difficult, and there was still the question of why they were separated in the first place. It seemed like anyone approaching the triplets wanted to profit off their story. They were made promises by the media that were soon broken as soon as the story broke. On top of that, the brothers were struggling with mental health. The bond between Bobby, Eddie, and David began to suffer as time went on. They started to recognize their differences, but stuck together as best they could. Nothing could prepare them for the many curveballs that were to come. The trio's decline began in 1995. Around that time, the adoptive parents of the three were finding the truth behind Bobby, Eddie, and David's adoption. And one sibling in particular felt increasingly overwhelmed by his inner demons. Eddie took his own life that year, while the family, both related and adopted, grieved over their loss. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Lawrence Wright published an article that revealed the disturbing truth of why the triplets were separated and how it has happened to others. Lawrence Wright's article uncovered a disturbing psychological study. The researchers involved sought to learn more about the concept of nature versus nurture, which is a big debate when talking about children. The three brothers' future was sacrificed to find an answer. What is more powerful in shaping a human being? Is it our biology passed down from the previous generation, nature, or is it the environment and circumstance that we grow up in, nurture? Dr. Peter Neubauer of the Child Development Center would stop at nothing to find out. Dr. Neubauer and his associates hoped to see how different or similar the children would be if they were separated and never knew of their siblings. Throughout the boys' childhood, a physician would often come to observe them. The adoptive parents were led to believe that the visits were merely to track the adoptive children's progress. After reading the article that Lawrence Wright had shared with the world, Bobby and David were beyond furious. They felt used. Even with happy families of their own, there was still a hole in their hearts from all the pain they endured. It was a bad time for a sudden movie deal. British filmmaker Tim Wardle was fascinated by the triplets' story and hoped to make a documentary with Bobby and David's support and blessing. The two brothers were suspicious of Wardle, as they had learned to be with anyone approaching them. The filmmaker completely understood their hesitation and worked with them while they take their time in deciding. After 4 years of convincing them, Wardle finally brought Bobby and David on board to share their story. They didn't care at all for the money, they just wanted the chance to tell the world what really happened, uncensored and unabridged. While there were concerns of sensationalizing the story to make it sell, Bobby and David took a leap of faith and made the documentary. It became a booming success at the Sundance Film Festival, where Bobby and David began to find peace. After watching the film's premiere at Sundance, Bobby and David felt like they could start to move on. The audience's hushed reaction meant a lot to the brothers, and they even had many strangers walk up to them and offer them an apology and a hug. In the end, the two brothers found peace. They returned to their families, but would never allow them to be separated again. While they can't forget the difficult times, they can move forward and focus on love and family.